Hello, Mark, and welcome to Entrepreneur Talks podcast run by Women Flakes.
Hello there. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
You're welcome, Mark, and I'm so excited to have you here and share your journey, your life, your business with us.
Yeah.
So before we start, can you tell me where you talking from?
I'm based in West London. Ironically, we only found out just before we came online. We're less than 10 minutes away from each other, which is very strange. But I'm based in West London in Chiswick. I've been living here for 6-7 years or so. Love the area. Love being when we could go into London. Loved that I could get into London in 30 minutes. So it was great flexibility for being in London, and equally where I am, you get that sort of, we've got a bit of a community feel around here, which is really lovely.
Yes, it's true. It's true. I love Chiswick, and I see the atmosphere about community. I've seen some places that I passed through. I'm like, wow, this looks really good because I see the energy, the vibe from people. One thing, are you from London originally, or are you from?
Originally I was born in East London, Essex Way, the other side of London, and lived there all through my early years of life, and then went to university, came back home for a couple of years, and then moved into central London for about 6 years or so. Met my now wife, and we moved to leafy Chiswick.
Love it. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So, my neighbor. We are neighbors. That's amazing. I'm sure we're going to keep in touch and we can do a lot of things together because we are so close as well.
Yeah, hopefully.
These days we do a lot of stuff online, mostly.
Yeah.
But when we know that we got someone that is very close, like 10 minutes, this is real for listeners.
We can grab a coffee or a beer or something. It'll be absolutely.
And it's so amazing. It's so amazing because it's been so many years, many months on lockdown.
It feels like it, doesn't it? It feels like years.
Oh my gosh. Let's go and talk about Mark Hayward. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So, in 3 words, could you tell me 3 words? You don't need to go further, but in 3 words, can you describe Mark Hayward?
Entrepreneur,
right?
family man, and business coach.
Fantastic. That's amazing. Oh wow. Entrepreneur, family man, and business coach. Now we're going to go and explain each of them, these 3 things about yourself and how they started the whole, why you saying you are an entrepreneur. Of course, family member. We're not going to be going too much on family, but as you mentioned before, you already moved, you are married with a lady and you live in physics. So that's good. But now we're going to go on entrepreneur. When did you start your journey as an entrepreneur?
So as an entrepreneur, it's I suppose the label has been for me for probably a couple of years. But I only recently, in the last couple of months, actually resigned from my corporate role. I was a fully fledged Big Four consultancy person and worked there for 14-15 years. But I started my podcast about 3 years ago. And within that, I then started a podcast course, and going on from that, that's built into my property business that I now have a number of properties near where I used to live in Essex, and looking to build up more properties as we go. So for me, sort of entrepreneurship, it evolved into now that I can do it full time, and I'm able to resign from my job and leave my job. So it's just for me starting businesses, working with partners or on my own to build businesses to a level which bring cash flow, build assets, and really trying to push the boundary of your own business mentality and being able to create the best businesses that I can.
That's fantastic. Wow. And what is your podcast about? Sorry.
So it's a business podcast. It's called Absolute Business Mindset. I do a mix between solo stuff and interviews. Interviewed probably 70 or 80 people. Done over 260 episodes in total in 3 years. So there's a good mix of things that I am thinking about, things that I'm experiencing, things that I think is important to talk to people about. Additional to all of the interviews where I interview business owners, entrepreneurs, authors, all type of business people that you can think of, all come under the bracket of my podcast.
Yes, like we do. I love that. Because we get to know so many people and to be involved as well in collaborations and so on. And that's really, for me, it's amazing. It's amazing the network that I end up doing and the knowledge I gain as well through the learning through my guests, through you, because I'm sure I'm going to learn something today about anything. You
know what? It's great because you can be a little bit selfish doing your own podcast because you can ask some of the questions that you want to know, and I always drop in one question which is something very, very personal to what I would like to know. So yeah, it's a great experience. You get to interview some fascinating people. I've gone into business with one of them, with my podcast agency that I've gone into business with. I've met numerous people which I've stayed in contact with, and sometimes we bounce ideas off or we just have catch-ups. It's a real, so one of the things I believe in is that your network is your net worth. And so when you build your network and build relationships with people, they are, whether it's a financial net worth or whether it's an emotional or mindset net worth, I feel that you can build incredible businesses and incredible relationships by doing podcasting.
Fantastic. Yeah, so true. So now we got the entrepreneur side.
Right.
And so you said entrepreneur, family, and property? Coaching. Property. I know property is gonna come.
Yeah, well, we can talk about property as well. I'm fine with that. The thing about properties are interesting because they're a great way of building assets and building cash flow as well. And there's a lot. I'm still learning. I'm currently doing an online course to develop another property strategy, because there's tons of different ways of making money out of properties, and I'm executing one variety, which is a buy to let, which is basically buying properties and then letting them out to tenants. But yeah, as I say, I'm literally about halfway through on an online course. It's about 12-15 hours, so it's quite an intensive course. But just to bring another string to my bow and bring another strategy to my property business, because you can't, or whatever business you're doing, you can't stay still. You have to have a growth mindset and be open to new things, because some things stop working. Like buy-to-lets won't stop working, but essentially if a change in legislation or regulation comes in, and the strategy that you're working on at the moment can stop or reduce in value. So for me, growing on mindset is incredibly important.
It is. I agree. Now coming to the properties, I just remember now. What do you think, or how do you think it's going to be now that I think it's 50 something days to Brexit?
Well, so yeah, I think the more pressing matter for properties is to do with stamp duty. So stamp duty that you pay the government has been reduced or removed up till March, end of March. And for me, this is why I'm looking this sort of January, February, March period next year to start purchasing some properties, because that stamp duty has been reduced. It means I'm paying less for buying properties. So I think that for me is a big, and that might stay a little bit longer after March. We're not sure what the Chancellor's going to say. But Brexit, I think, so where my market for my properties is, is sort of working class, lower middle class areas, and that for me is the right pinch point for getting people that want to upscale from flats into houses, or people that want to downsize because they've had problems in the pandemic, and people are moving both ways, up and down, into my property
Okay.
sector. Brexit wouldn't impact them that much. I think Brexit will impact the property business of the higher market, where people are perhaps where people are moving in from Europe that want to live in a nice, really nice area where you're sort of the prices are a little bit higher. I think that's where you're going. My area has an influx of all over the world. There's people from Africa. There's people from the Indian and Pakistani and Bangladeshi. They've moved to the area as well, which won't be impacted by Brexit so much. So it's an interesting thought. Like, will it impact? I don't believe at the moment it will necessarily impact my sector, my sort of area, but it's something we've all got to be ready for and sort of prepared for, because some of these things might affect that we're not expecting at this very moment in time.
That's good to know, because it's interesting, because you were just talking about properties, and we know that we're coming to the end of European and starting Brexit, and but that's good to know. Like the niche that you got is specific somewhere that is not going to be, you're not going to have that much impact.
Yeah, there's not that many French, Italian, Spanish people move into the area that I've got my properties in. They tend to, educated people from Europe tend to go to higher value properties because they've come in and they've got a job in a big corporation, and therefore they're sort of relatively more senior or higher valued incomes to be able to spend on their properties than where sort of my area, which is sort of like lower middle class and sort of working class.
Right. And it's quite interesting because I never thought about properties on that way, because now I understood, like, we also need to know what kind of people you want on your properties, or what kind of properties you're going to start, because I'm not into property, but it's something that I want to learn more.
Yeah.
And now that I got a neighbor, it's going to be easier. That works with properties. I will be knocking the door and asking, "Hey, Mark, how do I do this?" So it's
like this deal packaging business, which I'm working on at the moment. That's essentially sourcing properties for people. So I'd be happy to talk you through some of the options that you might have if you work with me.
Thank you. I really appreciate, and I don't forget that. I will keep in mind. So now let's go for coaching. So when did you start your coaching? Why and how do you do?
Yeah, so my coaching started probably about 2 years ago when I did a course with the Academy of Executive Coaching, and I learned a particular methodology on there, and then topped up with a different methodology about a year ago, which was more results orientated, sort of driving people's results and cataloging them and reporting on them. And I've sort of worked out my own methodology, which I think works the best for, and I'm targeting sort of small business owners or budding entrepreneurs. So if there's anyone out there that's wants to start a business or wants to start a side hustle, and it could be anything. I've got some clients who are in technology. I've got a client who's in finance. I've got a client who's in wanting to build a gym studio empire. And so for me, it's just that really exciting stage of starting a business or early stages of a business, and being able, I take them through the 7 steps of a startup. And so what we do is we move you from the very basics of setting up your own business, how to get your dream team, your accountant and solicitor and various things that you need to set up a business. And then we take you through all the different stages, the sales and marketing side, sales and marketing is very important, and I think it's something that, especially at the startup of the business, you really need to do your own market research, understand what your competitors are doing, before you even try and give yourself a USP, a unique selling point. So sales and marketing for me is incredibly important. We actually catch it twice on the 7 steps of the program, but equally we need to set up the building blocks to have a successful business. And the whole idea is that you go through these 7 steps and you will have a successful and sustainable business. For me, I'm not someone who's going to say, oh, you need to get VC funding, venture capital funding, and don't make a profit for the first 2 years. I don't. That works for certain types of businesses. The businesses that I'm working with at the moment, they are creating what I call an MVP, a minimal viable product, a very small part of their business, and trialing it, making sure that it works. And then once you've got a business that's actually turning a profit, then you can look to other industries, other sectors, other clients that you can bring into your business that you've created. So it's really very important for me. I believe in sort of the lean startup, that you create something very small and get it working, and then you can then expand your client base later on, whether that, in the example of the gym studio, it might be multiple studios. Software, it might be an advancement in the website, or in finance, just to build up your sort of client portfolio, your client businesses as well. So for me, start small, gradually build up, and you go through the course of 3, 6 or 12 months, and at the end you'll have potentially multiple businesses if you're able to scale through those 12 months.
Fantastic. I was about to ask you how many, what is the length of this journey with a company or with this starting a business startup?
So I've got 3 packages. One is for 3 months, which is essentially just the bare bones of setting up a business. The second is 6 months, which is where you create a business and then you make it sustainable. And then the third, which is my VIP package, which is a 12-month package with the ambition that you will have multiple businesses part of the package that you. So if it's a gym, you would have multiple gyms in 12 months.
Fantastic. Oh, I'm excited. I will check you out. I believe you probably go so far, Mark, I can understand that you do have coaching, property, podcast. You do have 3 businesses, right?
No, I have 5.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have 5. So I have my podcast, which I don't at the moment advertise on, but that in a sense is a standalone business. I do podcast training, so I now teach people how to become podcasters, and then coaching, property, and then my podcast agency as well.
Okay, because I knew coaching, property, podcast agency, podcast teaching. What I'm missing here?
And then the podcast itself.
The podcast himself. Oh, okay, great.
And you know what? It's interesting. I got asked to do something and to do an event next year in July, and I had to turn it down. I don't have the capacity at the moment to get another project and build it. And it was always something that Tim Ferriss, one of my sort of people that inspired me, said, you'll get to a point as an entrepreneur where you'll have to start saying no to things, because although they're really interesting and you could make it work really well, there is still only 24 hours in every day, whether you have 20 businesses or 1 business. So I'm at that point where I want to build the coaching business. That's why I'm investing a lot of effort into. Because I really think I believe in the methodology that I've got, and I believe that I can get people's businesses up and running and become a success in that sort of 3, 6 or 12 month period.
That's really good, because I do agree with you, and I was about to tell you, you will come to a point you cannot just say yes to everything. We got moments, we got stages, because when we start, we can go any free webinars, any free training, any free. We start always with the free. I went to so many places. I met so many people live. I mean, like going to events in London all the time about properties, about trading, about coaching, about anything you name it, I've been there. So, but now I can't do anymore. I don't have, I need to say no. I need to analyze really well if it's worth it. If,
Yes.
yeah, because we are on another level. We get to, if you don't stop that, the, let's say after a year or maybe 6 months, if you're still doing the same things that you were doing at the beginning, something is wrong.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
You need to carry on and move on to the next level or to the next step.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Amazing, amazing. A guy. Wait, what name should I do? Put, like, use for your podcast.
So it's called Absolute Business Mindset. There's a website which is absolutebusinessmindset.com. You can find me on.
Wait, Mark. I was asking you, what name should I call my podcast?
Oh, your.
Because you have 5 businesses. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna, but I like that, the absolute business mindset. I think I'm gonna call that because you got everything in one place.
Well, do you know what? It's interesting. Someone's just come up with in the last. I don't really want to advertise their podcast because it's so close to me, but they've called it Absolute Business Success, and I kind of feel they've piggybacked on my brand, which is a little bit disappointing. But obviously, you can't do anything about it, can you?
But what I mean right now is giving the name for your session, for your podcast session, not for my podcast, because my podcast has got a name. I'm not going to change. It's just your session with me will be Mark, the absolute business mindset guy. Something like
that. That's fine.
I just love it. I love this absolute business mindset. So, which is your name, your business name.
Yeah.
Totally good. So thank you once again, Mark. And my last question is, how can people connect with you and find more about your work?
Okay, so the website, as I've just mentioned a couple of times, absolutebusinessmindset.com. That will give you links to all of the different businesses that I've got running at the moment. The podcast agency is podcastintroduction.com. If you're interested to be a guest on other people's podcasts, then please reach out on that website. And to be honest, the best place to find me is LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so if you want to find me, it's Mark Hayward on LinkedIn. By all means, reach out to me, DM me. I'll be happy to respond.
Right, awesome. And also Facebook and Twitter, right?
Yeah, on Facebook and Twitter. I kind of release my podcasts on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram as well. But to be honest, if you want to reach out to me and you want to have a conversation with me, LinkedIn's the best place for that.
Fabulous. All your links, everything is going to be on the description of the podcast when it comes live.
Super.
Anyone can just click and go and check Mark, talk with Mark, and make sure you go into his podcast agency to check it.
Yes. If anyone's interested in being a guest, as I said, this is a fledgling business. We started in the last couple of weeks. It's really exciting. We are hopefully building a sustainable business with guests and getting them on the right type of podcast, whether you're a businessman, whether you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, author, whatever it is, we've got a bank of podcasts which are ready, and then we'll match you to the right podcasts.
Really good. Sounds a really nice strategy for people that want to be podcasting. Because I know a lot of companies, because I do podcasts. So you I know that we end up knowing people that run podcasts as well. So, and other things that you mentioned, or you can mention now to my listeners, if they would like to have or to get a free call, a session with you, for coaching or
yeah. So go to the website again, Absolute Business Mindset. You're able to contact me through that website. Do a 30-minute consultation call with you. I'll talk you through the methodology. Equally, I have taken on a few clients that I've helped someone who was in a career and they wanted to get a promotion, and I worked with them for 6 months to get them to that promotion. So it is a wider program, but I'm really trying to push this startup, building blocks of startups to get people who want to be entrepreneurs that don't know how to, and I'll educate them and teach them and inspire them to hopefully start up their startup.
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. So thank you once again, and I'm so grateful for this moment, this opportunity to have Manny with me on podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
You take care, Mark, and we're gonna keep in touch, I'm sure. And
yes.
We're gonna talk about business. Yeah,
okay, thanks a lot. Cheers, bye.